Alright, well, hello and welcome to my video on Planetary Annihilation Titans. I already have a video on Planetary Annihilation, so I'm going to keep this one relatively short, because for all intents and purposes, I've already talked about this game. We'll start off with what Titans adds, which is admittedly a fair amount, but bear in mind this costs $40. It is a standalone expansion, so you don't need the base game as far as I'm aware. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So $40 gets you the base game plus these additions, which honestly should have just been in the base game, but they need money. I understand how this works. I'm not an idiot most of the time. But anyway, we'll start with the stuff it adds. Notably, it adds Titans, which are effectively experimentals for those of you who have played Supreme Commander. Were there experimentals in Total Annihilation? I don't think there were. There was maybe one. I can't remember exactly, but they're basically experimentals. They're extraordinarily expensive, very large units that are horrendously overpowered. Legitimately horrendously overpowered, but you know, it's their thing, I suppose. There's also a bunch of new units. According to this, there's 16, including hover tanks, which is very nice, orbital battleships, which again, very nice to have additional orbital units, but it could have used more orbital units than that. And a couple of these new units seem to be very powerful. I've noticed an issue with, in my opinion, balance. The Tier 2 or Tech 2 or second generation or whatever you want to call it units are quite a lot more powerful than the first tier units. And what this usually results in, especially against AI, which is what I'm playing against in this video for simplicity's sake, is you being able to effectively rush a commander down with very few Tech 2 units and effectively ruin their day, because they're very difficult to deal with. Because they have so much health and do so much damage in such a short period of time, etc., etc. So that's a problem I've noticed. It might just be the AI, but that is a problem in and of itself. The AI in this game is still not very good. You have to go up, and this video is on normal difficulty because I am showcasing a few of the new units and just kind of screwing around and building things that realistically, because this is a faster paced game than Total Annihilation or Supreme Commander, realistically are unlikely to be built in any given match. So I'm playing on normal, but in order to get even remotely competent AI, you have to go way up in the difficulties just because it causes them to effectively build so many things that they kind of have to attack you with some of them. Hopefully I'll edit this video together to show stuff like that I'm talking about right now, because this is post-commentary. The AI is stupid, frankly. They'll build a ton of units, which they should send at you and attack you, because that's how this game works. And they'll just pile them in their base. They'll have 50, 60, 70 units later in this match that are just sat in their base doing nothing. They don't need those units. They have defensive towers for that purpose, which they also build a lot of. They're also incredibly bad at economy. They build, like, at the start of the match, they'll build like 2 or 3 factories before building any economy, which is completely unsustainable. You know, you build one factory, build some economy, and then you start building more factories. That's generally how it works, although it's not how I did it because I'm a dingle-dongle and I'm screwing around. But the AI builds too many factories. They can't support this many factories, so their production rate is dipping as low sometimes as 15-20%, I think is what I saw, which is ridiculous that they're pushing their economy that low for no reason whatsoever. So there's a huge problem in the AI. And you have to bump the difficulty up really high just to bypass that innate problem right there. Because, you know, AI. The other problem that still exists is pathfinding. Pathfinding is not very good. I understand this is a sphere, and pathfinding on a sphere is much more difficult than pathfinding on a flat plane. However, you would think they would have improved it slightly at this point, which I suppose they technically have, but it is still pretty much trash. Units will very frequently, and it happened in this match actually, very frequently get confused and be unable to go up the ramps onto the new plateaus that the game has, which are really nice. I'm not gonna lie, it's nice that the game has these now. They're not necessarily molded into the planet very well. They're actually not molded into the planet at all. They're basically set pieces that are built onto the, the planet separately. So you'll notice, not necessarily on this map because it's a metal planet, but on some maps, there's a very harsh transition from the plateau asset to the actual planet surface itself, so that's a little jarring there. I've also noticed a couple of times, I don't know if I recorded any, the textures are super wonky when you're zooming in and out, or even just moving the camera because something with the plateaus is weird or something. I'm not exactly sure what's causing it, but the textures are acting as if level of detail is very rapidly having to transition. So you'll go from, the texture that should appear when you're very, very zoomed out, because there's no reason to have quality textures at that distance. Excuse me. It'll show that texture when you're really close to the planet, and then it'll very rapidly flick back to the proper texture. And then if you fiddle with the camera around, it'll flip between these two textures, or well, these like 3 or 4 textures very rapidly, and it's kind of jarring. It obviously shouldn't be doing that. I don't know what's causing it. Anyway, what was I on about? Oh yeah, plateaus. The game has plateaus now. You can see them quite clearly in the video, like about 1 billion different times, because that's pretty much all that's on the planet now is plateaus. I chose this planet specifically because it has so many plateaus. Not every planet's this crazy. Just, wanted to point those out. That pretty much covers the new stuff. It's got new units, it's got Titans, it's kind of the name of the expansion, and it's got plateaus. As far as I'm aware, oh no, it's got a better tutorial now. I will admit the tutorial is actually fairly good. As far as RTS tutorials go, it's not anything blow you out of the water, but it does the job. That's all that's new. Everything else is old. Everything else is in the base game. Galactic War is not a campaign. I don't care what people say. It's not an epic campaign, epic single player, whatever that the Steam page says it is. It's basically just a series of skirmishes. That's not epic or a campaign, in my opinion, but it is still there. For those of you who don't know what Galactic War is, who haven't played the game, basically you just travel on a fixed map, basically, from planet to planet, and you fight AI, and then you can get some treasure or whatever, loot or whatever you want to call it from the planet that will allow you to build additional units or have a bonus to specific types of units like land units or bots or air units or whatever. That's basically it. You rinse and repeat that until eventually you win. It does progressively get harder, so there is that, but there's no overarching story or connection between mission to mission or anything like that. It's a skirmish basically with limitations. You can still smash planets. You can still play multiplayer, I guess. As far as I'm aware, there are no additional multiplayer modes. As far as I'm aware, it's still team matches, free-for-all, 1v1 ranked. I think that's the only ranked ladder is 1v1, which is a little bizarre, but whatever. That's pretty much it, to be honest. So I guess that's all I have to say about it. It still has more or less the same problems the original Planetary Annihilation did, with the AI being garbage and the pathfinding being fairly mediocre. It has additional units, which is nice because the original game was missing a lot of unit variety, but it still has no factions. And I realize this makes it a whole lot easier for balance, because you don't have different factions with different units with different, attributes or whatever, performing effectively the same role. But it means everyone can build everything. Every player has the ability to build every unit in the game, which means it's going to grow very stale very quickly, because you'll always be building the same units regardless of, what commander you pick or whatever. The commanders are just style, which, by the way, there's a whole bunch of commanders you have to pay for at like $5 or $8 a piece, if you so desire that style. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really not terribly fond of it still. There's been improvements, I guess, but $40 for it, for improvements that honestly could have done with being in the original game to improve that. You know, originally when it released would have been nice. It's $13.60. This is all US prices, by the way. I don't know the prices for anyone else because I'm not going to bother to check, but $13.60 for people who already own Planetary Annihilation. It's free if you're a Kickstarter backer, which is why I have it. So there is that going for it, but you know, I'm still not terribly enthused about it, so I suppose there's that. One thing I'm very fond of is that you can now self-destruct planets by building a Titan on it. A very specific Titan, which I will now show in the video, so thanks for watching this. It's a game. It's not a very exciting game. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.